Once upon a time, there lived a man named Matthew and his wife, Bonita. They were happily married, and soon after their wedding, Matthew decided to share something from his past with Bonita. He told her about an ex-girlfriend, Sonia, who had left him for another man. This revelation was difficult for Bonita to hear, but she appreciated Matthew's honesty. When their first child was born, a beautiful baby girl, Matthew asked if they could name her Sonia. Bonita was initially unhappy about this idea, feeling uncomfortable naming their daughter after Matthew's ex-girlfriend. However, Matthew managed to convince her, explaining that naming their daughter Sonia would help him move on from his past. Reluctantly, Bonita agreed. 2 years later, they welcomed another child, a son named Daniel. Matthew adored his daughter Sonia and showered her with love and attention. He bought her everything she wanted, often neglecting Daniel in the process. Matthew's love for Sonia was so overwhelming that he would call Bonita every hour just to check on her. Bonita occasionally felt jealous of the attention Sonia received, but Matthew reassured her that he loved all of them equally. As Sonia grew, Matthew's affection for her only increased. He frequently made her promise that she would not have a boyfriend when she grew up. Sonia, not fully understanding the implications of her promise, would agree innocently. 18 years passed, and Sonia blossomed into a beautiful young woman. She began making friends, including some boys, which made Matthew very anxious and angry. One day, Matthew called Sonia to him. He reminded her of the promise she had made when she was a child, that she would not have a boyfriend. Sonia, now more mature, explained that she had been too young to understand what she was promising back then. This response made Matthew furious. He went to Bonita seeking her support and asked her if their daughter was too young to have a boyfriend. Bonita calmly replied that Sonia was 18 and had the right to choose her friends and relationships. Matthew could not accept this. He became more controlling and insisted that Sonia follow his wishes. However, Sonia was determined to live her life freely. She loved her father, but wanted to make her own choices. This conflict caused tension in the household. Matthew's insistence on controlling Sonia's life strained his relationship with both his daughter and his wife. Sonia, feeling the pressure from her father, sought comfort in her friends. She confided in Daniel, who had grown up feeling somewhat neglected by their father. Daniel understood Sonia's feelings and supported her decision to live her life independently. He encouraged her to follow her heart and assured her that he would always be there for her. Despite Daniel's support, the tension in the family continued to grow. Matthew's constant interference made Sonia feel suffocated. One evening, after a heated argument, Sonia decided to leave home for a while. She needed space to think and figure out her path without her father's overbearing presence. Bonita tried to mediate the situation, but Matthew's stubbornness made it difficult. He could not see past his fear of losing his daughter to another man, just as he had lost Sonia, his ex-girlfriend, many years ago. This fear blinded him to the fact that he was pushing his daughter away. While Sonia was away, one of her male friends came looking for her. He arrived at their house and met Matthew outside. The young man was about to leave when Matthew called out to him, telling him to stop. Matthew warned him sternly never to be seen with his daughter again, threatening that he would do something terrible if he disobeyed. Frightened, the young man quickly left. Every day, Matthew missed Sonia more and more. He couldn't bear the emptiness he felt without her around. Finally, he decided to go to her friend's house to see if she was there. When he arrived, he was relieved to find Sonia. With a heavy heart, Matthew apologized for his behavior. He promised her that he would no longer bother her or try to control her life. Sonia, seeing the genuine remorse in her father's eyes, believed him and agreed to come back home. Upon returning, Matthew continued to shower Sonia with gifts, hoping to make up for his past mistakes. He bought her clothes, jewelry, and anything else he thought would make her happy. However, Sonia began to feel uncomfortable with the constant flow of presents. She sensed that her father's gifts were a way to keep her close and under his control. One day, Sonia decided to talk to her mother about it. She expressed her discomfort and told Bonita that she felt suffocated by Matthew's attention and gifts. Bonita, however, dismissed Sonia's feelings, saying she was being foolish. Bonita believed that Matthew was just showing his love and trying to make up for the past. Feeling unheard, Sonia turned to her brother, Daniel. She told him how uncomfortable she felt with their father's behavior. Daniel, who had always envied the attention Sonia received, said he wished he were in her position. He couldn't understand why Sonia was complaining when she had everything she could ever want. Despite her family's lack of understanding, Sonia knew she needed to address the situation. She decided to have a serious conversation with her father. One evening, she found Matthew in the living room looking through old photo albums. She sat down next to him and took a deep breath. "Father," she began, "I appreciate everything you've done for me, but I need to talk to you about something important." Matthew looked at her with concern. "What is it, Sonia?" Sonia explained how she felt overwhelmed by his constant gifts and attention. She told him that while she loved him, she needed space to grow and make her own decisions. She asked him to trust her and allow her to live her life independently. Matthew listened quietly. After a moment of silence, he began to speak. There was something Sonia needed to know. The reason she was named Sonia was because of his ex-girlfriend, whom he had loved very much. He saw his ex-girlfriend in Sonia, and the thought of another man having her made him feel incredibly jealous. Sonia was shocked. She asked what he meant by that, but Matthew looked away, his expression troubled. He told her she would understand soon. A cryptic response that made Sonia even more scared of her father. Feeling uneasy, Sonia decided to confide in her mother. One afternoon, she told Bonita that she was in love with a boy at her school. Bonita advised her to be careful and not make the same mistakes she had made. Sonia asked what she meant by that, and Bonita sighed deeply. She explained that Matthew didn't love her as much as she loved him. He named Sonia after his ex-girlfriend and was so obsessed with her because he saw his ex-girlfriend in her. A chill ran down Sonia's spine. This was what she had been trying to tell her mother. She didn't like the way Matthew bought her gifts and tried to keep her close. Bonita dismissed her concerns, saying it was nothing. Matthew was just so obsessed with his ex-girlfriend that he saw her in Sonia. Sonia was frustrated. She couldn't wait to run far away with her boyfriend. She told her mother that after her exams, she planned to run away with him. Unknown to Sonia and Bonita, Matthew was listening to their conversation. Hearing Sonia's plans to run away made Matthew's love for her die down, replaced by anger and resentment. How dare she think of running away? Where did she plan to go, and who was she going to leave him with? Matthew became obsessed with keeping Sonia all to himself. He began to think of ways to ensure she would never leave him. His mind raced with dark thoughts as he considered how to keep his daughter from escaping. As Sonia prepared for her exams, she noticed her father's behavior becoming more controlling. He started restricting her movements and monitored her closely. Sonia felt trapped and more determined than ever to leave as soon as she could. One evening, Matthew confronted Sonia in her room. "She wasn't going anywhere," he said. "She belonged with her family. She needed to forget about her boyfriend." Sonia stood her ground. She loved her father, but she needed to live her own life. He couldn't keep her there against her will. Matthew's eyes flashed with anger. "We'll see about that," he said. Sonia, frightened and determined, knew she had to act quickly. She secretly contacted her boyfriend and made plans to leave immediately after her exams. She also confided in Daniel, who, though initially envious, realized the seriousness of the situation and promised to help her. After her exams, Sonia came home to pack her things, thinking nobody was around. Unknown to her, Matthew was in the house. When he saw her packing her things, he grabbed her and locked her up in a secret soundproof room where nobody had access except him. Sonia realized that her worst fears had come true. She was trapped, with no way to escape and no one to hear her cries for help. Matthew then packed all of Sonia's belongings, including her phone, and burned them. He wanted to erase any evidence of her presence or her plans to leave. When Bonita came home from work, she asked Matthew if he had seen Sonia because she knew Sonia was finishing her exams today and was supposed to be home by now. Bonita said she had called Sonia's phone, but it wasn't connecting. Matthew, maintaining his calm facade, told Bonita that he hadn't seen Sonia since she left for school in the morning. To divert suspicion, he started shouting, accusing Bonita of spoiling their daughter. He claimed that Sonia might have run away because she had done it before. Matthew's loud accusations were meant to confuse Bonita and make her believe that Sonia had indeed run away. Bonita was worried and upset. She couldn't understand why Sonia would leave without saying anything. She began to question herself, wondering if she had missed any signs of her daughter's unhappiness. Matthew, seeing her distress, continued to fuel her doubts by bringing up past incidents when Sonia had been rebellious. Bonita tried calling Sonia's friends, hoping someone had seen or heard from her, but nobody had any information. The more she searched for answers, the more anxious she became. Matthew watched her with a mixture of satisfaction and unease. He was relieved that his plan was working. As days turned into weeks, Bonita's worry intensified. She reported Sonia missing to the police, but there were no leads. Matthew played the part of the concerned father, joining the search efforts and comforting Bonita, all while keeping Sonia hidden away in the secret room. Sonia, trapped in the soundproof room, felt hopeless and terrified. She had no idea how long she would be kept there or if anyone would ever find her. She thought about her mother and Daniel, wondering if they were worried about her. The isolation was unbearable, and Sonia's fear grew with each passing day. Meanwhile, Daniel noticed the changes in his father's behavior. Matthew was more agitated and secretive than ever. Daniel started to suspect that something was wrong. He tried to talk to his mother about it, but Bonita was too consumed with worry over Sonia's disappearance to pay much attention. One day, while Matthew was out running errands, Daniel decided to search the house for clues. He went through Sonia's room, looking for anything that might explain her sudden disappearance. In the back of his mind, he remembered the strange, unused storage room in the basement that his father always kept locked. Curiosity and concern drove Daniel to check the basement. He found the door to the storage room locked as usual. Determined to find out what was inside, he searched the house for the key. After a thorough search, he finally found it hidden in Matthew's room. Just as he was trying to open the door, Matthew came in and took the key from him, warning him never to go near the door again. Days later, Daniel told his mother about the secret room in the basement. He shared his suspicions about his father, but Bonita, blinded by love and trust, accused Daniel of lying about Matthew. She couldn't believe that Matthew could do something so terrible. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, thinking about what his father might be hiding. The mystery of the secret room gnawed at him, making him restless. The next day, he told his mother that he was planning to travel to stay with a friend because he was tired of living with them. Bonita, still trusting Matthew, dismissed Daniel's concerns. Unknown to them, Matthew overheard their conversation and began to feel scared. He devised a plan to deal with Daniel and ensure his secret remained hidden. 2 days later, Daniel went missing. Bonita tried calling his phone, but there was no connection. She asked around, but no one had seen or heard from him. Panic set in, and she reported him missing, just as she had done with Sonia. Matthew pretended to be concerned, but inside he was relieved that Daniel was out of the way. Meanwhile, every morning and night, Matthew would forcefully have his way with Sonia in the secret room. Sonia felt completely powerless and violated, her spirit breaking more each day. Soon, she discovered she was pregnant. Desperate for proper medical care, she asked Matthew to take her to the hospital, but he refused. Instead, he bought her books about pregnancy, telling her to read and learn from them. Sonia's pregnancy progressed under terrible conditions. She had no one to confide in and no proper medical attention. She often thought about her mother and Daniel, wondering if they were still looking for her and if they would ever find out the truth. Bonita, now dealing with the disappearance of both her children, was beside herself with worry. She clung to Matthew for support, unaware that he was the cause of her misery. The day of Sonia's delivery came. Once again, she begged Matthew to take her to the hospital, but he coldly refused. He told her to handle it herself, saying she was a woman and could manage without any support. Sonia, scared and in pain, had no choice but to give birth alone. She delivered a baby boy, her heart filled with both joy and sorrow. As the days went by, Sonia struggled to care for her newborn in the confined space. Matthew's cruelty continued. Whenever Sonia asked him for anything, he would always demand something in return. His condition was clear. She had to let him have his way with her if she wanted food, clothes, or any other basic necessities. Sonia, trying to protect herself and her baby, refused his advances. Matthew responded with harsh punishment. He starved her for days, not caring that she had just given birth and needed nourishment to care for her child. Sonia felt weak and desperate, but she refused to give in to Matthew's demands. She grew thinner and weaker, struggling to produce enough milk for her baby. Matthew's threats and manipulation wore her down, but she clung to the hope that one day she and her child would be free from his control. When Sonia saw that she couldn't produce enough milk for her baby, she felt desperate and helpless. The lack of food and proper care had taken a toll on her body, and her baby needed nourishment. Reluctantly, she gave in to Matthew's demands, hoping to secure food and other necessities for her child. Matthew, satisfied with his control over Sonia, provided her with the food and supplies she needed. But his cruelty didn't stop. Sonia endured the torment for the sake of her baby. But the situation took a heavy toll on her mental and physical health. 2 months after giving birth, Sonia found out she was pregnant again. The news filled her with dread. She was already struggling to care for one baby under such harsh conditions, and the thought of bringing another child into this nightmare was unbearable. She felt trapped and hopeless, not knowing how she could possibly survive another pregnancy and childbirth in such circumstances. Matthew, upon learning about the new pregnancy, was both pleased and more possessive. He saw it as another way to keep Sonia bound to him, ensuring she would never be able to leave. He continued his controlling behavior, making Sonia's life even more difficult. Sonia's health deteriorated further as her pregnancy progressed. She lacked proper medical care and nutrition, and the stress of her situation made everything worse. When the time came for Sonia to deliver her second baby, she pleaded with Matthew once again to take her to the hospital, but he coldly refused, just as he had done before. With no support, Sonia had to give birth alone in the secret room. The labor was long and painful, and she felt weaker than ever. Somehow, she managed to deliver a baby girl, but the experience left her physically and emotionally drained. As Sonia cared for her newborn and her first child, she struggled more than ever. Matthew's demands for her compliance continued, and the cycle of abuse seemed never-ending. Sonia did everything she could to protect her children, even if it meant sacrificing her own well-being. Meanwhile, Bonita's worry for Sonia and Daniel grew stronger. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Sonia had never been the type to just disappear, and the fact that both of her children were missing made her even more suspicious. Desperate for answers, Bonita pressured the police to investigate Matthew more thoroughly. She insisted that her daughter couldn't have run away without a trace, and shared every piece of information she could think of, hoping it would lead them to the truth. At first, the police were reluctant, but Bonita's persistence made them take her concerns more seriously. They decided to keep a closer watch on Matthew, who noticed their interest and quickly began to cover his tracks. When the police questioned him, Matthew was calm and convincing. He told them that Sonia had a history of running away and that she had done it before. He even suggested that they investigate Sonia's boyfriend, implying that he might be involved in her disappearance. The police followed Matthew's suggestion and went to Sonia's boyfriend's house. They searched for any evidence that might connect him to Sonia's disappearance, but found nothing suspicious. Without any solid evidence, the police eventually dropped the case, believing that Sonia had indeed run away, as Matthew claimed. Bonita was heartbroken, but with no help from the authorities and no new leads, she was left with only her unanswered questions and growing despair. 15 years passed, and during that time, Sonia gave birth to 4 children, all fathered by Matthew. Trapped in the secret room, she did her best to raise her children in the harsh environment she was forced to live in. As they grew older, Sonia knew they needed more than what she could provide within the confines of the room. One day, she gathered the courage to talk to Matthew about enrolling their children in school. She knew they deserved a proper education and a chance at a better life, but when she brought up the idea, Matthew's response was as cold and controlling as ever. He refused outright, telling her she must be out of her mind to think he would ever allow the children to go to school. Instead of giving them the opportunity to learn and grow, Matthew brought them some books and writing supplies, ordering Sonia to teach them how to read and write herself. He had no intention of letting them leave the house or be exposed to the outside world. Sonia's heart sank, but she knew she had no choice but to comply. As the years went by, Sonia did her best to educate her children with the limited resources she had. She taught them how to read, write, and do basic arithmetic, all while hiding the truth about their father and the world beyond the walls of their home. Despite her efforts, she couldn't ignore the growing fear that her children were being deprived of the life they deserved. Matthew's control over her and the children remained unbreakable, and Sonia felt more trapped than ever inside. Sonia's hope for freedom slowly faded. She lived each day in quiet despair, dreaming of a life she once had and a future she feared she would never come. The years passed, and her children grew up knowing only the isolated life Matthew had forced upon them. Sonia's only solace was the love she had for her children and the hope that one day something might change. One day, Sonia asked Matthew to change the toilet because it was no longer suitable for her and the kids. The bathroom was in terrible condition, making their already harsh living situation even worse. Matthew looked at her coldly and said he would only do it if she let him have his way with her first. Desperate for any improvement, Sonia reluctantly agreed. After Matthew was done with her, he did not keep to his promise. Instead, he told Sonia to manage with the bathroom they had. This betrayal hurt her deeply, but she had no choice but to endure it for the sake of her children. Meanwhile, Bonita grew tired of Matthew's cold and distant behavior. He barely paid attention to her, and the love that once existed between them seemed long gone. Frustrated and lonely, Bonita decided she couldn't live like this anymore. She packed her things and left him, hoping to find some peace and start a new life. Instead of feeling sad or regretful about Bonita leaving, Matthew felt a strange sense of relief. With her gone, he felt he had one less person to deceive and control. When Sonia asked about her mother and brother, Matthew told her that Bonita had left him and that Daniel had suddenly disappeared. Sonia was devastated. She knew deep down that Matthew was responsible for her brother's disappearance, but she felt powerless to do anything about it. One day, Sonia's eldest child, Joseph, began to question their situation. He was smart and curious, even though he knew nothing about the outside world. His questions became more persistent. "Why can't we go outside, Mama?" Joseph asked one evening. "Why do we have to stay here all the time?" Sonia's heart ached as she looked into her son's innocent eyes. "It's for your safety," she said gently. "The world outside can be dangerous." Joseph accepted her answer for a moment, but then asked, "But why is it dangerous for us?" Sonia struggled to find the right words. "We have to stay here because it's safer for us," she said, her voice trembling. Joseph didn't seem satisfied with the answer, but he didn't press further. Instead, he turned his attention to his younger siblings, trying to keep their spirits up with games and stories. Sonia watched him with a heavy heart, knowing she had to find a way to give her children a better life. One day, while Matthew was out shopping, Sonia saw a small chance to escape. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she felt she had to try. She called her son Joseph over, and they both went to the door, hoping to find a way out. Sonia tried to open it, but it was locked tight. They looked around for something to help, even using a kitchen knife to try and pry it open. Despite their best efforts, the door wouldn't budge. In their struggle, they left scratches on the wall near the door. Realizing they couldn't hide the marks, Sonia felt a deep sense of fear. She knew Matthew would notice and wouldn't believe any excuse she made. When Matthew came home and saw the scratches, his face twisted in anger. He immediately demanded to know what had happened. Sonia, trying to protect her children, told Matthew that the kids had been playing and accidentally scratched the wall. But Matthew didn't believe her. He could see the fear in her eyes and knew she was lying. In his anger, Matthew decided to punish her in a way that would make sure she never tried to escape again. His fury only grew as he realized that Sonia had likely tried to escape. In his twisted mind, he saw her actions as a betrayal, and he decided to punish her in the most cruel and degrading way he could think of. He grabbed Sonia roughly and forced her to the ground in front of their terrified children. Despite her pleas for mercy and the cries of her children, Matthew had his way with her right there, making sure the kids witnessed everything. It was a horrifying scene, meant to break Sonia's spirit and instill fear in the children, so that they would never dare to try escaping again. As if that wasn't enough, Matthew further punished them by depriving the entire family of food for 3 days. He locked the kitchen and kept the key with him, leaving Sonia and the children to suffer in hunger. The children cried from the pain in their empty stomachs, but Sonia could do nothing to help them.